meteorologists are at a loss to explain what is causing this weather.
Are you getting this on camera?
Now, what you see is happening now.
There is so much damage.
JPA was battered by the largest hailstorm on record.
Weather experts yesterday slamming the
Here in New Delhi, it's snowing.
That's a tornado! Yes, a twister!
This is just massive.
All right, so you're hearing a trailer from the movie The Day After Tomorrow from a couple of years ago after Al Gore had fomented the greatest hysteria of our time as a climate gonif, a climate crook, a climate gangster, the head of the climate gang that I've never seen anything like this in my life. I knew as a trained scientist that the information was not complete. I knew as a trained scientist that when they were saying the science is complete and everyone agrees that they were lying because it's never true in science to begin with. There's virtually nothing in science where there's 100% agreement. And so when I started to hear from Al Gorleone, the head of the Gorleone crime syndicate, in my opinion, that all climate scientists agree that the science is in and anyone who disagrees is the equivalent of a Holocaust denier, I knew that there was something wrong with this picture. I knew it as a trained scientist, and I started in June of '06 to do some research, and I found some very reputable climate scientists, real climate scientists, unlike Al Gorleone, the head of the Gorleone crime family, and the fake climatologists who were in it for the money, who were saying the opposite, that we were entering a period of global cooling. I knew also basic science proved that increased carbon dioxide levels, in fact, increase the food supply on the earth, not decrease it. So the more carbon dioxide actually is better, not worse. And then if we went into the opposite phase, which is what we might be going into, which is global cooling, there'd be mass starvation on the earth. In other words, everything that these crazy people have been promoting with global warming, which they then changed to, what they changed it from global warming to what? Something, what they call it, Beowulf? They went from global warming to what, climate change? Because they knew that they were being found out. Well, now the lid's been blown off. A hacker went into the emails of the hysterics who've been promoting the global warming and found out that they were making up the data, fudging the data, pushing people out who disagreed with them, throwing disagreeing scientists off scientific boards. And I want to reiterate, in June of '06, long before the hemorrhoid had a piece of chalk in his hand, long before any of those wrapping themselves in the Elmer Gantry flag of geniuses on the conservative side, you name it, June of '06, I was trying to sound the alarm bells, telling you the alarmists on global warming were liars. Now, here we are at a point where we have a faker as president, a complete and total charlatan in the White House, who bows and scrapes before dictators around the world, and now has the audacity, in addition to running America like a banana republic, which I called a bandana republic for obvious reasons, because they had the nerve to push this health care bill down our throats on a Saturday night while you were sleeping. That's something that was done in a banana republic, and I called it a bandana republic because it reminded me of gangsters, not legitimate politicians. This same charlatan president is going to go to Copenhagen next month and sign away the life of America unless he is told in no uncertain terms to stop. And I'm telling you that this came just in time by a God save. And I also told you that only God could save America. Once I saw who Obama was, I said, oh, it's in God's hands because the people don't have any power anymore. I said, only God could save this country. And I am telling you as I stand here, this is God's work, that a hacker broke into the emails of these climate hysterics. And the American people don't know about it yet because ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and the others won't publish it. The Wash Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, and the other failed newspapers will not publish it. And so, therefore, conservative talk radio and the Internet continues to be the greatest engines of truth in America, which is why we are thriving while they are dying. Now, I want to play for you a little piece right now. We'll start it, maybe break and come back to it. And I want to remind you again, June of '06, I had this on the show. I'm slightly ahead of my time. Listen, the National Academy of Sciences, so-called, came out and said it's the warmest it's been in 2,000 years, and it's all because of us, mankind, and that the science is in. That's rubbish. Many scientists disagree, and what the other scientists are doing are looking at snapshots, not the whole moving picture. Now, one of the chief scientists that I listen to is a professor and geographer named Harm de Blige, B-L-I-J, who wrote a book called Geography Matters. And he is speaking about global warming and cooling. Please listen to clip 28.
It it got even warmer without our help in the Eemian than it is today. Sea level was 15 feet higher at the top of the Eemian than it is today. And it is an uncomfortable truth that if you take a look at those graphs, there's a very good chance we will be facing that again, whether or not we contribute to the pollution of the atmosphere.
Whether or not we contribute to the pollution of the atmosphere. I hope you understand that. And we're just in the middle of a cycle that's getting hotter. Now, so listen to 24.
About 25 million years ago, glaciers begin to form in the highlands, even in the tropics, in New Guinea, in the Andes, Kilimanjaro. About 12 million years ago, the Arctic Ocean freezes over and stayed frozen over. And then, in a period, a time frame called the Pliocene, there is a plunge of temperatures from about 6 to about 1.8 million years ago, when that incredible cooling came close to wiping out humanity, the primates, our common ancestors, but survived in Africa, not in Eurasia. And then 1.8 million years ago, it has been cold like this for 100,000 years. Then the temperature rises precipitously, well, that's not a very good word, suddenly, up to warm conditions of the kind we're experiencing today. That warm period tends to last somewhere between 8 and 13,000 years. Then there is an equally precipitous drop, and it is cold again. Now notice these glaciations that are happening here have their kind of warm intervals as well. But then there's another one of these warm periods, and then it drops again. This has happened now about 18 times over the past 1.8 million years.
Now, I understand many of you can't follow it or don't want to follow it. I also understand many of you are college-educated or reasonably well-educated on your own and can follow it. It's common sense. This is not too complicated. Now, we then go on to Professor DeBlige's discourse that I think is fascinating. Listen to 26.
Just 18,000 years ago, and I know this is not news to anyone in this audience, ice stood as far south as the Ohio River. My house in Cape Cod would not have survived. And it came down very quickly, and it receded very quickly. The reason the United States is the breadbasket it is because those glaciers scoured rock in Canada into the finest powder imaginable, shoved it all into our Midwest, and then the ice retreated, leaving us with some of the Earth's most fertile soils. I'm surprised the Canadians haven't demanded reparations. This is where all this fertility came from.
See, he's the kind of science professor that I loved. First of all, he's knowledgeable. Secondly, he can explain it in common terms that we can understand. And he's basing it upon real evidence, which he was showing there. I'm going to leave out the real science behind what he's saying. This is not opinion. You can say it's theory based upon evidence. Let's put it to you that way. But it certainly counters the absurdity of the National Academy of Sciences that we're the hottest in 400 years, and we did it. Now, go on to 27.
Just when it looked as though Europe was going to get itself organized, that its wealth and its cities were going to become the centers of democratic governments, has already begun to happen in Iceland and one or two other northern places, the climatic roof fell in. And in a matter of not generations, but years, Europe was transformed. The agricultural frontier, which was in Scandinavia and included Iceland, there was settlement in Greenland. Greenland wasn't called Greenland for fun. It was called Greenland because it was a green tip of a very cold place. And then all of a sudden, climate switched over. It had to do something with the thermal haline circulation in the ocean, the North Atlantic Ocean, obviously. But in any case, what happened was priests prayed with their congregations at the faces of glaciers advancing out of the alpine valleys, gobbling up villages and churches and farms and fields. It was as many a diary I have read, because wine growers were keeping diaries in those days because they, more than anybody else, were sensitive to climate change. They all wrote and said it was like lava coming out of a volcano. That's how glaciation impacts.
So this was played on the Savage Nation in June of '06. I'm replaying it for a few reasons. One, to show you that the show is usually ahead of its time. Two, to show you that reputable scientists have long argued the opposite of Al Gore and the shysters in the climate hysteria movement. And three, don't believe what you read in the newspapers. Believe in what you hear on the Savage Nation. I'll be right back.
Savage.